Welcome to Beth's Happy Home. We're still working on that Thanksgiving menu, and so today I'm going to show you how to do the sweet potatoes. Now, a lot of people avoid sweet potatoes on the Thanksgiving feast because they either think they're too sweet or they're too mushy. And so this recipe is extra nice because it defeats both of those things, the texture and the overly sweetened element. And then there are people who love them because they're so sweet. But I personally like them a little bit lighter, but they're still absolutely yummy. And I do it by combining them with apples. So the first step is these are washed little sweet potatoes, and I'm just going to pop them into a pressure cooker and cook them. You can use canned, but the advantage of cooking them yourself is that they're not going to be as soft, and so they have a little bit more form and they taste a little fresher than the canned ones. So I'm just going to cook these on high for 12 minutes, and that will be enough to get them nice and soft, and they will peel themselves. They'll just fall out of their peels, and then I can put together the casserole when they're done. So got it done. Next, I'm going to cut up these apples in thin slices so that I can layer them with the sweet potatoes. These are homegrown Honeycrisp apples, so they're very, very flavorful and sweet. And the nice thing about Honeycrisp is also that their skins are really thin, so you really don't need to peel them. The skins are not objectionable at all in this recipe. If you're using a type of an apple that has a tougher skin, you might want to peel them, but that's strictly a matter of preference. And these are going to be just fine. I'm cutting them into quarters, and then each quarter into 5 slices so that they're really nice and thin. So the apples are all cut up, so that's about 4 cups of sliced apples. And that's just sort of according to your own proportion. If you're going to start with 6 large yams, then you do 5 or 6 apples. I'm kind of doing a half recipe. Well, I'm definitely doing a half recipe today because there aren't a lot of guests here to eat this dish. So here's the sauce. I'll show you how to put it all together, but while the yams are still cooking, I'm going to put the sauce together. So this is a half a cup of brown sugar, and then I'm going to do about a half a teaspoon of salt in there, and then 2 tablespoons of cornstarch, I'm going to get this all assembled, and then let's see, 1 cup of water and about 2 tablespoons of butter. You can use margarine if that's what you have on hand. Obviously, the butter is going to taste better. And nutritionally, they are about the same. Butter has saturated fat, but margarine has trans fats, and trans fats are at least as bad as saturated fats as far as your blood vessels are concerned. That was a teaspoon of vanilla, and now I'm going to do a teaspoon of cinnamon. So this is a very sweet, flavorful sauce. It's going to taste very similar to the sauce that you use on an apple pie filling. And my measurements in my hand are pretty good, so this recipe does not have to be precise. It's to taste anyway. So now I've got this mixture. I'm going to take it to the stove. I'm going to cook it until it's thick, and by that time these sweet potatoes should be done. All right, these just as I finished cooking the sauce, these sweet potatoes in the hot pot were finished. You can see how the skins are splitting. 12 minutes on high was just right for these for this many sweet potatoes. I'm scooping them out of the water. I forgot to tell you that there was an inch of water in the hot pot when I put them on to cook. Get that out of the way. So the reason I don't bother to peel them before I cook them is because they just jump right out of their skins afterwards. I have twice assigned this recipe to someone else when they were coming to Thanksgiving, and on both occasions I neglected to tell them that they were starting with cooked sweet potatoes, and so they were chunky little nuggets that were not really edible. So I learned, you have to make sure that you cook them first, or use canned, which come cooked. This is the texture of the sauce. It smells absolutely divine. It smells like caramel, cinnamon caramel, but it is very yummy. So now I just put these right in this casserole dish, which I intended to spray, and so since I didn't, I'm going to go ahead and just do it now. Seems like I'm always forgetting something important. Anyway, I'm just going to slice these into little 1/2-inch slices like this. These are just tender, but they're not really squishy. They're not really mushy, like sweet potatoes can get. So they will hold their integrity pretty well. Now I'm going to lay these flat, these little slices of sweet potato flat in this little dish. Ordinarily I would be making twice this much, but as I said, since the dinner guests tonight, there will only be 5 of us, I don't want to make more than we can eat in a couple of sittings. So, don't have quite enough to fill that up, so we'll do this. So you line the bottom of the pan with the sweet potatoes, and then you cover them with apples. Now these apples are not cooked. They are just completely raw, and they are going to but you've sliced them so thin that they are going to cook enough to be just the right texture when you heat this through right before serving. So, as you can see, just layer those in, and now I'm going to pour a thin layer of the sauce over this first layer. Because you're not just using plain sugar and cinnamon like is kind of the typical recipe, it lightens it up. The sauce is not as much sugar as you would ordinarily use if you were just using a plain candied yam recipe. So you do the same thing again, layer these up. All right, this is all layered up. 2 layers of yams, 2 layers of apples, and 2 layers of sauce ending up with the sauce on top. And so it's ready to go into the oven. I'm going to bake it for 35 minutes at 350 degrees, and I'll show you what it looks like when it comes out. So these are nicely done, I think. I'm just going to check and make sure that they are nice and tender by sticking a knife down. This apple's a little bit stiff, but it's not enough to be a problem. That one was a little bit thicker. So yeah, they're very nice and tender. So those are going to be delectable. I'll show you what they look like served up. So it's almost like a pumpkin pie type, an apple pie type recipe, but you've got all that good vitamin A going on with the sweet potatoes. Sweet potatoes are extremely nutritious. and that's going to just be fantastic. I think it's too hot to eat at this point, but you can kind of see what that is and use your imagination. It's going to be a fantastic Thanksgiving.